Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Jimmy Tingle Meet the Candidate series. Our guest today is a second time candidate for Cambridge School Committee. Eugenia Schraa is running for her second time, ladies and gentlemen. And she really worked hard during the break in between candidacies, in between electoral races. And we spoke to her 2 years ago. So, Eugenia, welcome to the show, and please tell the audience about yourself.
Hi, yes, I'm Eugenia Schraa. So you can think that Eugenia is just pronounced like Eugene, and Schraa, like I said as my slogan last year, it rhymes with algebra, which remains relevant. Um, I'm a former public high school teacher. I taught in the Bronx, and I have a first and a third grader in the school systems here. They go to Baldwin, which has been a really, really exceptional experience for us. Something we really, really benefited from. In fact, Baldwin really helped one of my kids that was behind in learning, which was a really tough moment for us. And they pulled out all the stops and did a lot to help that child overcome what was a very worrying problem. So one of the things I always say that distinguishes me in this race is the fact that I have an advocacy record. Um, One of the things I worked on was after school. I have a Substack with another parent who has worked on that with me. And we were able to get a few wins, including adding 170 seats to after school after a lot of pressure. And I always talk about how unsexy that work is. It's really about taking a look at what the city puts out. They put out these reports, taking a look at the numbers, and particularly what numbers are not there. What do they think the numbers are saying, and are we sure that the numbers really are saying that? Is there anything missing there? And my best little example of what this work entails and what it can do is that the head of DHSP, which runs the city's after schools, said that the reason they couldn't hire more, the reason they couldn't expand after school wasn't because there was a problem with space. It wasn't because there was a problem of funding or money, but it was a difficulty in hiring, which was true. It is actually really hard to hire, particularly right after the pandemic. But we took a look at what the salary was for Cambridge after school workers. And then we made a few phone calls and did some research and made a little table of how that compared to Brookline after school pay and Somerville and Boston, and just were able to show that Cambridge was underpaying. And then the next step is to connect that with this parent email list that we'd grown and ask them to write in to city leaders. And that did result in after school pay going up. So all of that just to say that that's the sort of level of attention that I bring to things, and follow through and making sure that things actually get done, which is certainly easier said than done.
Great. So you're in the trenches. I love it. So let,
There you go.
let me ask you, you said one of your children got a lot of attention at the Baldwin, and they were able to be, their performance improved in school. Is that
Yeah.
is that consistent with all the schools in the city in your estimation or your experience?
I don't know how each school would handle something like that. I think the bigger issue that is apparent to an outsider like myself is that from the data, you can see that different schools are producing different outcomes as measured by the data that is publicly available. So, the one, unfortunately, that I think needs calling out is just recently the new MPAS data came out. And it really had some alarming statistics, particularly for middle schools. And the Cambridge Street Upper School showed that just 6% of low-income students at Cambridge Street Upper School were meeting expectations. So that's 94% who are not. And then for sixth grade math, and that was in math. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I said that. And then for math in sixth grade, 0% of low-income students, that's a state designation, are meeting expectations. So that's, I think, taking a look at how well served each school students are at each school is an important question, but not one you always have all the answers to. Just knowing that 0% statistic, even though it's alarming, um, needs a lot more details to be filled in to understand what that means and what's happening. What are the problems? Maybe what are the challenges coming in?
Well, tell me, if you were elected this term, what are a few of the things that you'd like to work on?
Well, so I always say I have my most important issue is kind of the least sexy. And often when I'm door knocking to people, they'll say something like, that was the same issue I experienced 10 years ago with my student, 20 years ago with my kids, 30 years ago. But it's still the most important. And it has to do with what I was just talking about, which is making sure that the school is as focused as possible on our students learning. Because when you ensure that every student is learning, that's how you know you're producing true equity. A public school should be the equalizer, and a public school should unlock economic mobility for every kid, including the kids coming from the most impoverished backgrounds or difficult backgrounds, whatever that difficulty might be. And instead, what seems to be happening a lot is that there's something, and this is something that somebody at Door Knock gave me this exact phrase. So I've been using it ever since, but the optics of equity. And so I said, Eugenia Schraa still the rhymes of algebra, because algebra continues to perfectly show this trend that exists at the schools. This year, for the first time, every 8th grader is taking Algebra 1. And that actually has a lot of benefits to it. It's in some ways a good thing. But there are problems, because in June, at the end of the last, when they were now 7th graders, the head of math presented on where that class was, and she showed that about half the class was below grade level. 15% of the 7th graders from last year are 3 grade levels or more below where they should be, which is a huge number and a really shocking number. And then about a third, 33%, were above grade level. And so right now you've got all of those kids in the same class. And there was talk of maybe having an Algebra 1 class and then the regular class, so one more advanced and one less advanced. And that was deemed to be unconscionable tracking. That would be inequitable, was the pushback. And so all the kids are in the same class. So I think now what I would like to do is to be one of the voices pushing back and saying, equity means giving each person what they need to have a similar outcome. The outcome we'd like is that you are proficient in math. You are on grade level for math. So with the 15% of kids who are 3 grade level or more below, how is this equity? If the school can show that they are going to bring those kids up to grade level, that is great. But CPS has a habit of saying something is equitable and then not focusing on the outcomes. The outcome is what matters. The process of how you get there, we should be very agnostic. We should support what works and throw away what doesn't. We got to stay focused on this outcome. Does it work and does it not? I want to be one of those voices saying, we're here to get equitable outcomes. There are so many families here in Cambridge that need public school to set their kids up for success. And when I say so many families, I should say there's nobody who sends their kid to school not hoping it's setting them up to succeed in life after graduation.
Right. So the equity issue, and do you think you would get buy-in, or have you noticed buy-in on the school committee around that particular issue of rethinking the way they're doing things with the classrooms?
I think that there are a few voices on school committee and in the administration who are focused on student need and the needs of student learners. But I don't think that there's enough. There's a lot of people who are happy to say, teachers can differentiate and that works, even though they don't see the evidence. But by the school's own statistics, sticking with this Algebra 1 example, at the very least, because it said above grade expectations or 3 grade levels or more below, so it's unclear how many grade levels above and below that the kids went. But at the very minimum, that's 6 grade levels of different skills in one math class. So we need a school committee to be stronger about saying, is this system working? In which case, great, more of it. Or is it too much for a math teacher, to differentiate over at least 6 different grade levels? And I think we do need more voices that are pushing back on that. Like if you do a quick Google search of the superintendent search, you can see that this is a group that doesn't always have the best follow through or isn't always interested in following best practices, even on the thing that inarguably is the most important task that they have had, which is to find a great leader for our schools.
Great. What else would you like to work on if you were elected?
Okay, so that I think I did say my two 2025 issues. There's a lot of issues,
Right.
but I just
Sure.
the ones that seem the most salient right now. So both of these are very depressing. Sorry about this, but
Hey, that's okay.
I'm very concerned. Oh, I need to not be laughing when I say the next one because I'm really concerned about ICE and particularly how families will react to the fears of ICE. We already know that there are families that are struggling with this here in our district. You can do a quick Google search and see that there are families who have been affected directly. I want to make sure that the schools are doing two things. One is doing everything they can to make the schools as safe as possible. Unfortunately, you cannot make the schools 100% safe. I published some basics of this immigration law in my weekly newsletter. And there's a lot that can be done, but it's just never 100% because an officer could come with a judicial warrant and then would have to be let in. But right now, our schools are still kind of open. You can walk in and out, at least at my school. I don't know about other schools. And so the other part of this is not just making the schools as safe as they possibly can be, but also telling parents about that. And I don't think we've heard enough about all the things that are happening to make the school safe yet. Because the most important thing is that those families, have full information about how safe or not the school is, so that they have to make this very difficult choice about, am I going to bring my kids to school or is that too dangerous for our family? So don't envy them that. I think those are the things CPS needs to take on. And then another kind of depressing issue that's timely
It's not depressing at all.
Yeah.
It's a front burner issue, and it's not limited to Cambridge. It's limited to Mass. It's not limited to Massachusetts. It is a national issue that is very new to us. So thank you for even addressing it in the conversation. What's the next one?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The other one is generally, I think that the schools need to think about getting ahead of tech as much as possible. They just addressed or just had the bell-to-bell cell phone free policy starting this fall, which is good. And I'm glad that that's happening, but it really should have happened at least 1 year before, if not two. But I'm glad that they're trying, and it's not easy. I know that these pouches that they have are easy to unlock. So we're going to have to see how it plays out. It'd be great to be doing that experimentation, a good year ago and see where it takes us. But we're starting now. But unfortunately, they're still working on a policy for AI, at least at the high school. And that's a really, really tough one. But I always try to work with a local intern, either from the CRLS, the high school, or from the local charter school. And I have noticed that kids they cannot do their own writing, at least some of the kids I've worked with. Super smart, wonderful kids. Everything goes through ChatGPT. This is a huge problem because so much of learning and learning to succeed out in the real world, which is waiting for every kid after they graduate, has to do with learning how to write and how to think. And there's been some research showing that excess use of AI can have negative cognitive effects. So it's really important that the school not have the perfect policy, because I don't think anybody has that yet, but be really working proactively on creating that and making sure that the kids are not using that magic button to do their thinking for them.
Well, thank you.
I'm glad I didn't put that food as a kid. I definitely would have used it for sure.
Another issue on the front burner. So Eugenia, please tell us more. How can people find out about you? Maybe volunteer for your campaign, maybe make a large donation to your campaign, and maybe vote for you on November 4th. Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have my websites at voteeugenia.com. Having an unusual name is so helpful in that regard. I got voteeugenia.com. And on my website, you can see all of my past newsletters I've written. I write one every week. I've written about AI. I've written about ICE in schools. I've written quite a bit on the superintendent search. I've written about. I have a blog for navigating the Cambridge preschool program that's up now for anyone who's in that process, which that lottery ends November 14th. So voteeugenia.com's got tons of resources.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck on the campaign. I might see you on the trail, and best of luck on November 4th on election day.
I saw you. I door knocked
No,
you.
good.
I love Jimmy Tingle. So he votes, everybody.
All right.
He follows through.
Thank you so much, Eugenia, for being with us today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.